things that we should be doing, the policies we make? That would be my next question. Andrew, would you like to answer that?
Now, you've hit the nail on the head, Alec, because our economic indicators have been going one direction, and then people's health and mental health and childhood success rates and everything else have been going the other direction. And you can see it most clearly right now. I think many stocks have just hit all-time highs while we have depression-era levels of unemployment. And I've been saying to folks, look, investors aren't investing in job growth. Investors are investing in capital efficiency and return on investment. And if I'm a company and I figure out how to do more with fewer workers, then you clap me on the back and say, yeah, I want to invest in that company. If you say I'm going to like employ tons of people, you're like, well, can you avoid doing that? Because increasingly people are a drag on economic performance more and more. And that's particularly true in an era where like a human being delivering your pizza is of negative value to you. It's like, I'd actually prefer it if you just sent me an autonomous vehicle and I don't have to deal with a human. That would actually make me feel, that would make me feel safer and happier. And so what we've been operating in is this collective fiction that what's good for business will result in benefit to workers, because if you're a company that grows, then you're gonna have to hire lots of people and you have to treat them well. And these things are no longer true. They have not been true for quite some time, and they're becoming less and less true now. So what we have to do is we have to abandon that fiction, say, look, GDP, stock market returns, and headline unemployment rates don't actually correspond to how many of us are doing. So we should just measure how we're doing based on how we're doing, like our health and life expectancy, our mental health, freedom from substance abuse, childhood success rates, labor force participation rates, and engagement. I mean, the biggest disaster, and this is one thing I found frustrating on the trail, is like Andrew Yang wants to give everyone money. Yeah, that's true. And then it's like, but then what about work? And I sometimes wanted to tell a joke is like, I love work. People are going to be much more likely to work if they actually have some kind of foundation. Like the problem right now is that we have people abandoning the workforce in droves for like a whole host of reasons. And then our government has these structures where it's like, well, if you convince me you're disabled, then we'll give you money. Or we'll give you money right now as long as you're not working. Like right now, everyone's complaining because people aren't working because their unemployment benefits have been increased, at least temporarily. And so it actually makes more economic sense for me not to work than to work. And then everyone's like, oh, like that stinks. And it's like, well, what do you expect? You structured their economic benefits to benefit them more if they're not working. You know, it's like that's just a very basic incentives and program design problem. So what we have to do is we have to shift away from the collective fiction that what's good for Amazon is good for like the local townspeople, start measuring how townspeople are doing. And then you'd see we're in the midst of an historic mental health crisis that got compounded by COVID-19. You'll see that our life expectancy declined for three straight years, which is something that, and this is before the pandemic.
Right.
Like it's highly unusual for your life expectancy to decline in a developed country. But it's been declining because of drug overdoses and suicides. You know, like we in this room, this Zoom room, like, you know, this thing costs money, so you're pretty successful. But we're really, really worried about our kids and their well-being for a whole host of reasons. And we're not wrong. You know, it's like our kids are being set up to have a much, much harder struggle ahead of them. And then if you go out to the average American household, that struggle is exponentially harder, where they're looking up and saying, well, like college is now $60,000 a year, or you know, my daycare is super expensive, or my kid's not going to actually get a steady job out of college, even though college is now crazy expensive. So we have to start paying attention to how people are doing, and then say that's going to drive our success. And it's not even that big a switch. It's just abandoning certain core measurements and installing others that we already have the numbers for. But I want to return to David's point. The problem is that we generally don't care. Like we operate like we care, but we don't care really. Like the brainwashing I referenced earlier is just so strong, where even when you are asking someone to do the right thing, you're couching it in economic terms. You're like, hey, we should help that person because maybe there's an Einstein in there or something. You know what I mean? But that's just the way we think. It's like you can't even break out of it. And so like the measurements leading us off a cliff is a fundamental problem, and it really should not be that hard to remedy. It's something that I'm going to try and make happen in this next administration if Joe wins, to say, look, like we have to humanize the economy, and it starts by saying that GDP, stock market prices, and headline unemployment rate are not the measurements we should be using.
Great.
If you liked our video, please subscribe for more content. Thank you.